number of people coming to the UK on small boats is up 38% since Labour came into office. That's according to new Home Office figures, which also reveal an 8% increase in the number of people in asylum hotels.
Well, the government's seeking a solution about where to house asylum seekers after Epping Council won an interim legal battle to stop them being placed in a hotel. Yesterday, we asked the Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp where he thought migrants should be housed.
There are some other options. I mean, there's the barge you've mentioned. So the barge was ordinarily used to accommodate, I think it was oil and gas workers. So it can equally be used to accommodate asylum seekers. There are also options with military sites you've mentioned, the Napier Barracks in Folkestone being an example of that. And other countries around Europe have used prefabricated modular accommodation as well.
Should migrants be placed in compounds or should they be welcomed into community spaces like hotels, flats and house shares? Political campaigner Jovan Owusu-Nepaul says that migrants should be integrated and put into houses, while Director of Popular Conservatism Mark Littlewood believes compounds will work. Good morning to both of you. Thank you for coming in to debate this morning. So, Mark, let's start with you in that case. On this whole concept of compounds, is it a feasible solution, do you think, and is it a fair solution?
I think it's both feasible and fair. It would require a bit of imagination. To give your viewers a sense of the scale here, the rough number of people we've got in asylum hotels is about the same who go to the Glastonbury Music Festival on any given day. So that's the sort of scale of a compound or an encampment that you would need to house all of them. I'm very, very open to us exploring those sort of possibilities, whether it's an encampment, whether, as Chris Philp says, you can use former military barracks. I'd put all of that on the table, and I think is far, far better than commandeering four-star hotels in Canary Wharf. We don't need to assimilate these people into British society because it's important to understand they're not migrants, they're asylum seekers. And the question is, are they going to stay in Britain or not? They're in a holding pattern until we've decided that. Now, once we let them in, if we say, yes, your application's been successful, by all means, at that point, it's about assimilating them into the local community. We've got to be quicker at actually processing these claims. Ludicrous. It takes months or years to process a claim, but while your claim is being processed, I think you can be in a compound or an encampment.
Let's come to you then, Jovan. What do you make of this, you know, a temporary solution while people are waiting for their claims to go through?
I'm just sick to the back teeth of hearing people park people in what seems to me internment camps in random parts of the country where they don't have the same access to integrate into communities, to make the case, to develop their skills, to understand what it's like to live in Britain. Instead, we want to put people out of sight, out of mind, park them in some random part of the country. That's only going to foster greater grievances between people. It's not going to ensure British people have an understanding as to why people are coming here. I don't think many people willingly put their children and their wives and others on boats if they weren't in a desperate situation. I just think it's absolutely scandalous, the idea that you could just park people out of sight and out of mind. There has to be a fundamental restructure as to how we're looking at people who are coming from very vulnerable parts of the world. We have to make them feel at least welcome.
What do you say to people? It's your point that people wouldn't put their wives and kids on the sea unless the water was safer than the land. But lots of people seeing young men, migrants, not asylum seekers, which is what Mark is talking about, who are the beneficiaries of these very expensive hotels, often paid for by taxpayers, many of whom are new first citizens that struggled to become British lawfully.
Well, that's another thing, is the fact that the landlords of these massive hotels are creaming off the taxpayer, making huge amounts of money. Hotels are for people when they're going on holiday, not for people who are coming over here hoping to claim asylum. You're right, there are more men coming over to this country, and I think that does have to be addressed. But there are so many people, there are women, there are children coming here, fleeing from very desperate circumstances, and we need to look at actually how we integrating these people. Many people, most reasonable people, wouldn't even put their dogs in this situation.
Look, I agree that once somebody's got a migrant visa, I don't know, somebody's come over from Romania to be a nurse or from America to be a brain surgeon, integrate them. We haven't decided these people are staying. That's the point. They're not part of British society until we give them the go-ahead and the green light. So you don't need to assimilate them, develop their skills or all the rest of it. That's for people who have a right to be in Britain. I think it's an outrage, as I say, that it can take 18 months or longer, quite typically, to process their claims. In my view, it should take about 18 days, not 18 months.
Well,
but you don't need to assimilate them in until you've decided...
Mark, for the purpose of this debate, help us understand what this compound looks like. You're referring to Glastonbury. Are you talking about a barbed wire internment camp? What exactly...
Well,
hang on a second. What does it look like and how much is it going to cost?
Well, I haven't costed it, and I think there will be a range of different options. I don't think it's an internment camp or barbed wire. You're free to leave at any time. If you want to go home, you just put your hand in the air, we'll send you back to whence you came. So you're completely free to leave. It's hardly an internment camp. And I think we'll need a range of options. If the political will's there, we can do it. Let me give you an example. During COVID, at the outset of COVID, it took us 7 days to build a Nightingale hospital in London. If you've got the will to do it, you can build things quite sophisticated very quickly.
Although cost-wise, we know, for example, the cost of converting the barge, which then had to be closed because of issues with that and health problems, was actually more than actually putting people in hotels. So it's not always the most cost-effective.
No, I agree with that, and cost-effectiveness should be the determining feature. But the idea that the most cost-effective solution we can think of is to commandeer luxury four-star hotels is clearly nonsense.
Do you remember when Robert Jenrick painted over the cartoons in one of these holding centres for young people that were coming over? People want safety, stability and security. Any person wants that, irrespective as to where they're coming from. People should be afforded that whilst they're seeking their asylum seeker claims. The fact that we're so willing and so hasty to deny that to so many people who are coming over, I just think is absolutely preposterous.
Well, hang on, you make it safe, secure and stable without it needing to be a four-star luxury hotel, right?
Of course. But, I mean, what we've seen in the past where governments have even...
of course, but this is the purpose of the debate, is where do you stay?
So what is it? Because you were ruling out hotels, you're ruling out compounds. What do you think would be the way to house people then in this situation?
I think what we have to do is we have to start having a conversation about maybe we should put people into communities. I understand there's a lot of hostility around that. We're seeing some of the protests around the country. And that is because there is a housing crisis and there's a whole range of issues that many people are kind of having to battle with. But we're not going to get any greater understanding of different people if we park them out of sight and out of mind. People have to be in our areas. People have to have a greater understanding as to these people who are coming over so we can maybe police them better, we can house them better, they can have access to some of the resources, health service if they need it, and they're willing to chip in. No recourse to public funds, many asylum seekers.
I think you really are putting the cart before the horse here, right? These are not migrants. These are not people who've been awarded a right to stay or a right to work here. These are people who are in a holding pattern until we've decided that. So you don't need to assimilate them. We may well be sending them back home. Now, I agree, it's almost inhumane that that process takes a year often, sometimes 2. But we're not assimilating these people into British society because we haven't decided whether they're staying yet.
All the while, what's going to happen is you're going to have a group of people who are here who are not integrating into British society, who will continue to form their own communities and do things in maybe the places of origin that they came from. That is not good for anybody. Surely, even in their status of claiming asylum, there should be ways in which they can integrate within the host country.
I'd much prefer we process these claims actually offshore. If you are seeking asylum, I'd like it to be done basically through British embassies abroad, rather than you turning up on Dover Beach here in England.
An argument to sort of rehaul the whole system.
The debate continues, litigation continues. It's been interesting to hear from both of you. Thank you very much. Now, just to be clear, the Home Office said this government inherited a broken asylum system. At the peak, there were over 400 hotels open. We'll be continuing to work with local authorities and communities to address legitimate concerns. Our work continues to close all asylum hotels by the end of this Parliament.